The cold billionaire saved me from my ex, then demanded a marriage I swore I'd never agree to. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The night air in downtown Seattle was heavy with rain, the kind that blurred the neon lights into trembling streaks. Maya stood beneath the awning of a closed cafe, her breath fogging in the cold. Her ex, Tyler, stood only a few feet away, his voice sharp and venomous. "You think you can just walk away after everything I did for you?" he shouted, his hand gripping her arm. She winced, trying to pull free. "You didn't do it for me," she said through trembling lips. "You did it for control." The street was almost empty, the rain swallowing every sound except the echo of his anger. A black car slowed at the curb, headlights cutting through the mist. The driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out, dark coat, measured steps, and an expression carved from stone. His voice cut clean through the tension. "Let her go." Tyler turned, ready to bark back. But the look in the stranger's eyes stopped him cold. The man's gaze was calm, yet there was something dangerous beneath it. The kind of quiet power that didn't need to shout. Maya froze, staring. The stranger reached into his coat and pulled out a card, handing it to Tyler with unshakable precision. "If you have a problem," he said evenly, "you can contact my lawyer. But if you touch her again, you won't need one." Tyler sneered, muttered a curse, and stumbled off into the rain. The stranger turned to Maya. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his tone softening. "Come on, I'll take you somewhere safe." Too stunned to protest, Maya followed him toward the sleek car. The warmth inside felt almost unreal after the storm. She caught a faint scent of cedar and expensive leather as the door closed behind her. "You don't even know me," she whispered, glancing at him. "Why would you help?" His eyes stayed on the road as the city lights flashed across his face. "Because I don't like seeing people hurt," he said simply, "and because I could." He drove her to a quiet high-rise overlooking the sound. The elevator ride was silent, except for the distant hum of machinery. When the doors opened, she saw it, his penthouse. Glass walls, silver fixtures, and a view that looked like another world. "You can stay here tonight," he said, leading her inside. "The guest room's down the hall." "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, her voice small, uncertain. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Because sometimes it's easier to fix someone else's mess than your own." Before she could reply, he was gone, disappearing into another room. She stood there, surrounded by a kind of silence she hadn't known in months. Luxurious, still, but somehow lonely. She didn't know his name yet, but it would be one she'd never forget. Adrian Cole, the cold billionaire who just saved her from her past. What she didn't know was that by morning, he would demand something she swore she'd never give again, her hand in marriage. The morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Adrian Cole's penthouse, painting the marble floor in shades of gold. Maya woke to the sound of rain tapping faintly against the glass. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then the memory hit last night. The stranger, the car, the storm. She sat up on the edge of the bed in the guest room, her clothes neatly folded on the chair. Someone had left a tray by the door with coffee, and a note written in sharp, elegant handwriting. "You are safe. Take your time." She ran her thumb over the signature, A.C. Adrian Cole. It sounded familiar, but she could not place it. She had heard that name before, maybe in business news or some luxury magazine, but it felt distant, unreal. Maya changed into the clothes she had brought and stepped out into the silent hall. The penthouse looked even larger in daylight, minimalist. Glass and steel, everything spotless. It was beautiful, but cold, like its owner. She found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, pouring coffee into a white porcelain cup. He looked almost too composed, like a man who planned every breath. "Good morning," he said without looking up. "You slept well, I hope." "Yes, thank you. I did not mean to stay the night," she said quickly, clutching her bag. "I can go." "Go where?" Adrian turned, leaning against the counter. "Back to the man who grabbed you in the street?" She flinched. "No, I will figure something out." "You do not have to." His tone was calm but final. "At least eat something before you disappear." She hesitated, but the smell of toast and coffee was too inviting to resist. They sat across from each other, silence stretching between them. "Why help me?" she finally asked. He stirred his coffee slowly. "Because I could, and because you reminded me of someone who used to believe the world was kind." The way he said it made her chest tighten. She wanted to ask who, but his eyes had already shifted to the skyline beyond the glass. When she finished breakfast, she stood. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. I will not take more of your time." "You already did," he said, his tone unreadable. "But I will allow it." She blinked, unsure if he was joking. Before she could reply, his phone buzzed. He stepped away, answering curtly. "Yes? I will be at the meeting in 30. "No. Tell them. The board will have to wait. There are priorities." When he hung up, he turned back to her. "You need a job?" The question startled her. "I do, but I do not want pity." "Good," he said. "I do not give pity. I give opportunities." He handed her a sleek black card with gold letters embossed on it, Cole Industries. "Come tomorrow at 9. Bring your portfolio." "I do not have one anymore," she murmured. "My ex sold my work." "Then start over," he said simply. "Most people never get that chance." Maya stared at the card, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Why would you hire someone you do not even know?" Adrian's eyes softened just slightly. "Because I am curious what kind of woman still says thank you after being broken." She had no words, only a strange, quiet gratitude blooming in her chest. That night, back in her small rented room, Maya replayed the day, over and over. She searched his name on her cracked phone screen. Adrian Cole, billionaire investor, CEO of Cole Industries, one of the youngest power figures in Seattle's finance world. The man who saved her was one of the richest men in the country. But his eyes, when he looked at her, were not like the photos online. They were colder, lonelier. As thunder rolled again outside, Maya whispered to herself, "People like him do not just help strangers. There must be a reason." She did not know yet that the reason would change everything. The contract, the marriage, and the promise she never thought she would make again. The next morning, the city sky was a blur of silver fog and drizzle when Maya stood in front of the glass tower that held Cole Industries. The building rose like a blade, cutting through the clouds. She hesitated, clutching the black card Adrian had given her. For a moment, she wondered if he would even remember the offer. But she took a deep breath and walked in. The receptionist smiled politely, her tone crisp. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice steady but soft. "With Mr. Cole." A quick phone call later, an assistant in a dark suit appeared and guided her through sleek hallways lined with abstract art and the faint scent of cologne and power. When the elevator doors opened to the top floor, Maya's pulse quickened. Adrian's office was surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of the city. He was already there, sitting behind a mahogany desk, reviewing files. When he looked up, his eyes flickered with brief recognition. "You came. You said 9, she replied quietly. "I did," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Let us see what you can do." He handed her a sketch pad and a pen. "Design a logo for something you love." "Something I love?" she echoed. "That should be easy for an artist," he said simply. Maya sat across from him, the silence of the room pressing against her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she began to draw simple, flowing lines, forming a symbol of wings cradling a small flame. It took less than 5 minutes, but when she looked up, Adrian was already watching her, not the paper. "You draw emotion," he said after a moment. "Not perfection. I like that." She frowned, confused. "What is this for, Mr. Cole? I do not understand why you—" "Because I need someone like you," he interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "My company is building a new project, something that requires sincerity, not just numbers, a community fund for small businesses. I want you to help design its image." She stared at him, speechless. "I am not qualified for that." "You are qualified to start," he replied, standing. "And that is more than most people." The day passed in a blur. Adrian introduced her to his small creative team, a mix of quiet designers and restless interns. She spent hours sketching, testing colors, trying to find her rhythm again. Every now and then, she would feel his gaze from across the glass wall of his office, steady, unreadable, as if he was studying something more than her work. By late afternoon, exhaustion caught up to her. As she packed her things, he appeared beside her desk. "You did well for your first day," he said. "Thank you," she murmured. "I will try to improve." "Do not try," he said calmly. "Just be honest. That is all I ask." She nodded, and for a moment, there was silence then. His phone rang. His face hardened as he answered. "Yes, I saw the report. Handle it before the press does." He ended the call, the edge in his voice fading as he looked back at her. "You should head home. My driver will take you." She wanted to refuse, but sensed arguing would be pointless. The car ride was quiet, Seattle's streets glowing wet under the city lights. When she reached her apartment building, she turned to thank the driver but noticed a small white envelope resting on the seat beside her name. Inside was a note in Adrian's handwriting. "For the start you deserved. A.C. and a check for $3,000. Her breath caught. She wanted to give it back, but there was no way to reach him now. That night, Maya sat by her window, rain tapping the glass. The check, lying on the table. It was more money than she had seen in months. But it was not the amount that made her heart race. It was the thought that maybe, just maybe, someone believed in her again. And somewhere high above the city, in his glass fortress, Adrian Cole stared out at the same rain, holding the same sketch of the wings and the flame. He traced the lines with his thumb and whispered under his breath, "I finally found someone real." He did not yet realize that the woman he had just hired would become the only thing strong enough to break the walls he had built around his heart. Over the next few weeks, Maya's life began to change in quiet, unexpected ways. She arrived at Cole Industries every morning before sunrise, often the first to turn on the lights in the design room. Her hands found rhythm again, sketching, revising, and creating pieces for the new community project Adrian had mentioned. It was called the Phoenix Initiative, an investment fund aimed at rebuilding small businesses destroyed by economic collapse. The name had been her idea, and for the first time, she saw Adrian smile when he approved it. "Rising from ashes suits you," he had said. She was not sure if he meant her or the project. Their days grew into a strange routine. He was always precise, detached in meetings. But every so often she caught him watching her through the glass wall that separated his office from the creative floor. There was something in his eyes that made her heart stutter, curiosity maybe, or recognition. One rainy Friday, as she was about to leave, he stopped her by the elevator. "Do you have plans tonight?" he asked. "Not really," she admitted. "Good," he said. "You are coming with me." She blinked. "Excuse me? There is a charity gala at the Grand Monarch Hotel. The Phoenix Initiative will be announced publicly tonight. You helped build it. You should be there." Maya hesitated, looking down at her worn coat. "I do not exactly have gala clothes." Adrian's lips curved slightly. "You will." That evening, a car arrived at her apartment with a garment bag and a note. "Wear this. Trust me. A.C." The dress inside was breathtaking, midnight blue silk that shimmered under the light, simple yet elegant. When she arrived at the hotel ballroom, chandeliers glittered above hundreds of guests dressed in black and silver. Adrian was waiting at the entrance, wearing a dark suit that looked like it belonged to another century. For a second, she forgot how to breathe. He offered his arm. "You look unexpected," he said, his tone unreadable. "Is that good or bad?" she asked. "It is dangerous," he said quietly, and for the first time, she saw the faintest trace of warmth behind his cool demeanor. Inside, cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and business magnates shook hands over champagne. Adrian introduced her as the creative mind behind the Phoenix Initiative, and she felt dozens of curious eyes turned toward her. It was overwhelming, but he stayed close, his presence steady and protective. During the speeches, he spoke of renewal, of giving back, of finding humanity in success. His words did not sound like the billionaire tycoon the world knew. They sounded like a man, trying to remember what it meant to care. After the applause, Maya stepped aside to catch her breath. She found a balcony overlooking the rain-soaked city. The air was cool and smelled faintly of roses from the arrangements inside. A moment later, Adrian joined her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Most people here are terrified of those lights." "I still am," she replied, smiling faintly. "You just did not show it," he said, his voice softer now. For a while, they stood in silence, watching the city lights flicker through the drizzle. "Why me, Adrian?" she asked suddenly. "You could have chosen anyone to design this, to stand beside you tonight." He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because when I met you, you were not afraid to be real. And because every empire needs a reminder of what it stands for." She did not know what to say. His eyes met hers, and the distance between them seemed to disappear for a heartbeat. Then someone called his name from inside, breaking the spell. He turned away first. "We should go back," he said quietly. But as they walked inside, Maya could not shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. That night, when the gala ended and the crowd faded, Adrian's car stopped in front of her building. She reached for the door handle, but he spoke first. "Maya," he said, his tone unreadable. "Tomorrow morning, come to my office early. There is something we need to discuss." Her heart skipped. "Is something wrong?" "No," he said, eyes meeting hers, through the reflection of the rain-streaked window. "Something is about to change." She did not sleep much that night, unaware that his next words would alter the course of both their lives forever. The next morning, Maya arrived at Cole Industries earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen, and the glass tower glowed in shades of silver. She felt the weight of curiosity pressing on her chest as she stepped into the elevator that took her straight to the top floor. When the doors opened, Adrian was already there, standing near the window, his suit immaculate, as always. But something in his posture was different, stiffer, heavier. "You are early," he said without turning around. "You told me to be," she replied. "Good," he said, finally facing her. His expression was unreadable, his tone calm but distant. "I have something to propose, and I need you to listen carefully before you answer." Her pulse quickened. "What is this about?" He gestured toward the chair opposite his desk. "Sit." She obeyed, her palms slightly damp. Adrian placed a folder on the table and slid it toward her. "This," he said, "is a marriage contract." Maya froze, eyes widening. "A what?" "You heard me," he said evenly. "A legal, temporary marriage between you and me." Her voice broke with disbelief. "This has to be a joke." "It is not," he replied. "My father's estate requires that I be married by the end of this quarter to retain control of Cole Industries. It was a clause added years ago, something I never thought would matter, but the board is already preparing to challenge it. I need a solution. and you are the only person I trust enough to involve. Maya shook her head slowly. You do not even know me. I know enough, he said, his gaze sharp but not unkind. You are honest. You do not play games. And you owe me nothing. That makes you the safest choice. The safest choice? She repeated bitterly. So, this is not about love. It is about control. Love is not a requirement, he said quietly. Just authenticity in public. 6 months. After that, we dissolve it. And you walk away with full compensation and your own design firm, funded through the Phoenix Initiative. Maya stared at the papers in front of her. The words blurred into meaningless lines of ink. You cannot just buy someone's hand, Adrian. I am not buying it, he said, his jaw tightening. I am offering you stability. You have seen how ruthless this world can be. I need someone beside me who understands both strength and compassion. You are the only one who has shown me either. The room fell silent. Outside, the city shimmered under the morning light, unaware that inside, two people were standing at the edge of something irreversible. And what happens if I say no? She asked finally. Adrian's expression softened for the first time. Then I lose everything I have built, and the company falls into the hands of people who would destroy everything we have done for the community, including the Phoenix Initiative, including your work. His words hit her harder than she expected. She looked down, tracing the edge of the folder with trembling fingers. You really planned all of this, she whispered. No, he said. I planned for everything except you. Something in his voice cracked the ice between them. Maya closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. If I agree, she said slowly, I want 3 conditions. Adrian arched an eyebrow. Name them. 1, she said. No lies. If this is public, then I will not be used as a prop. 2, we keep things professional. No touching. No pretending more than what is written. Understood, he said. And the 3rd, when this ends, you will let me walk away, no questions, no persuasion, no guilt. He held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. You have my word. She exhaled, the weight of her decision sinking in. Then I will sign it. Adrian opened the folder and handed her a pen. As the ink touched the paper, a strange calm filled the room, the kind that comes before a storm. When she finished, he signed beside her name and said quietly, Congratulations, Mrs. Cole. The words echoed through her chest, like a secret she did not want to own. He extended his hand. Formal, distant. She shook it, her voice barely a whisper. This is not a love story, Adrian. No, he said, his expression unreadable. But maybe it will become one anyway. Outside, thunder rumbled across the sound, as if the sky itself knew that neither of them would ever be the same again. 2 weeks later, the marriage of Adrian and Maya Cole became official. It was not a grand affair, just signatures, witnesses, and the cold echo of a courthouse hallway. There were no vows, no rings exchanged, only the faint scratch of a pen sealing their fates. Afterward, a driver took them to the penthouse that was now, technically, their home. Maya stood by the window as the city stretched beneath her, glittering and untouchable. It feels strange, she murmured. Adrian, loosening his tie, said without looking at her, It is supposed to. Their lives settled into a rhythm of formality. They appeared together at business dinners, charity functions, and public events. Cameras caught every glance, every word, every careful gesture. The world believed in the story of the cold billionaire who had finally found a wife. But behind closed doors, they spoke little. She stayed in the guest room, and he respected the boundary she had drawn. Yet despite the silence, something fragile began to form between them. An understanding born not of romance, but of quiet coexistence. One evening, Maya returned from a design review to find Adrian in the living room, sleeves rolled up, pouring himself a drink. He looked tired, older than she had ever seen him. Rough day? she asked. The board is restless, he said, handing her a glass of water. They think our marriage is for show. Isn't it? She replied softly. His eyes met hers, steady, but wounded. Maybe at first, but I have stopped being sure. She looked away, her heart beating too fast. We agreed to keep things clear, Adrian. I remember, he said. But clarity is not the same as emptiness. His words hung between them, heavy and dangerous. She turned to leave, but he said quietly, Maya, wait. She stopped, not because she wanted to, but because something in his voice trembled. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Signing the contract? She hesitated. I do not know. It gave me purpose again. But sometimes I wonder what it is taking away. Freedom, he said bitterly. It takes that from both of us. The next day, they attended a private board meeting where Adrian announced a major investment in community housing through the Phoenix Initiative. His speech was confident, persuasive, but when a senior board member asked how his wife influenced his decision, Adrian's answer caught everyone off guard. She reminded me that money means nothing if it does not build something lasting, he said, looking directly at Maya. A murmur rippled through the room, and she felt her cheeks flush. After the meeting, she confronted him in the hallway. You should not have said that. Why not? It was true. You are using me as your moral cover. No, he said quietly. I am learning from you. That night, a storm rolled over Seattle. Thunder cracked, rain lashed against the glass, and Maya could not sleep. She stepped into the kitchen and found Adrian there, leaning against the counter, staring out at the dark skyline. Do you ever rest? She asked gently. Not really, he admitted. My mind does not stop. Maybe you should let it, she said, pouring herself tea. For one night. He smiled faintly. And what would I do if I stopped thinking? Feel, she whispered before realizing she had spoken aloud. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the storm echoing their own turmoil. Then Adrian said quietly, I forgot what that was like. She met his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them, something that frightened them both. When she turned to leave, his voice followed her softly. Good night, Maya. She paused at the door. Good night, Adrian. As she closed her bedroom door, her heart ached with the truth she could no longer ignore. The contract had boundaries, but feelings did not obey signatures. And somewhere in the quiet of that storm, the cold billionaire who claimed he did not do love was beginning to fall. The weeks that followed blurred into a pattern of quiet tension and unspoken emotions. The marriage that had started as a legal arrangement began to feel like something neither of them could define. Adrian still kept his distance, but his silence had softened. Maya often found small signs of his presence, fresh flowers left on her desk, a cup of tea waiting for her in the morning, a blanket folded neatly on the couch when she fell asleep working late. He never mentioned any of it, but the gestures spoke louder than words. One evening, while Adrian was away on a business trip, Maya attended a charity exhibition alone, representing the Phoenix Initiative. She did not expect to run into her past, but as she stood admiring a piece of modern art, a familiar voice whispered behind her, dripping with bitterness. Well, if it is not Maya Turner, the artist who traded her soul for a billionaire's wallet, she turned sharply. Tyler, her ex-boyfriend, stood there, smug and bitter. What do you want, Tyler? She asked, trying to steady her breath. Just a conversation, he said, stepping closer. You disappeared after ruining my career. Now you are married to Adrian Cole. Must be convenient. I did not ruin anything, she snapped. You lied, and you hurt people. I walked away. You walked into a gold mine, he sneered. Do you even love him? Or are you just playing the part of his charity project? Before she could reply, another voice cut through the tension, low, controlled, and unmistakably cold. That is enough. Maya froze. Adrian was standing behind Tyler, his presence commanding the room in an instant. Mr. Cole, Tyler said, his confidence faltering. We were just talking. I could hear it from across the hall, Adrian said evenly. I do not like the way you talk. He stepped closer until Tyler's arrogance melted into fear. You will apologize and leave now. Tyler swallowed hard. Fine. I am sorry, he muttered before turning and walking away quickly, disappearing into the crowd. The air felt heavier after he left. Adrian turned to Maya. Are you all right? I am fine, she said, her voice trembling. You should not have come. You think I would let him talk to you like that? He said, his tone sharper than he intended. I am not helpless, Adrian, she said, lifting her chin. You cannot keep rescuing me every time something happens. I am not rescuing you, he said, his voice low. I am protecting what is mine. The words hung between them, dangerous and unguarded. She stared at him, eyes wide. What you just said, she whispered, was not part of the contract. He exhaled, realizing too late what he had revealed. You are right, he said softly. It was not. The drive home was silent. Rain streaked the car windows, blurring the city lights into ribbons of gold and red. When they reached the penthouse, Maya stepped out first, her heart pounding. I do not belong in your world, she said, turning to face him. You keep trying to control everything, but you cannot control feelings. I am not trying to, he said quietly. I am trying to understand them. She shook her head. You cannot understand love if you keep hiding behind contracts. With that, she walked toward her room, her footsteps echoing through the hall. Adrian stood in the foyer, silent, her words echoing in his mind. Later that night, he poured himself a drink and stared at the rain hitting the glass. For years, he had built walls out of logic, numbers, and deals. But now, a woman who had nothing to gain from him was breaking those walls without even trying. He set the glass down, the sound sharp in the silence. You are right, Maya, he whispered to the empty room. I cannot control love, but I can lose it if I am not careful. And for the first time, the cold billionaire felt something he could not manage, predict, or by fear of losing the only person who saw him as human. The tension between Maya and Adrian grew heavier in the days that followed. They worked side by side at Cole Industries, but every word between them felt cautious, careful, like they were both afraid to touch the truth that hung in the air. Then, without warning, the storm came not in the sky, but in the headlines. One morning, as Maya arrived at the office, the receptionist avoided her eyes. On the lobby screens, a headline flashed in bold letters. Inside, the fake marriage of Adrian Cole, a corporate lie, exposed. Her heart stopped. The article claimed their marriage was a fraud, a calculated move to secure control of his company. It quoted anonymous sources, leaked documents, and photos from private events. Someone had betrayed them. When she entered Adrian's office, he was already there. The paper spread across his desk, his jaw tight. Who leaked it? She asked, her voice shaking. My cousin Ethan, Adrian said coldly. He has been waiting for a reason to force me out. This gives him exactly what he needs. They called me a liar, she whispered. They said I married you for money. Let them talk, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I will handle it. Handle it, she snapped. Adrian, my name is in every headline. My reputation is gone. You promised this would not ruin me. He looked at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. I did not expect this. No, she said, her voice breaking. You just expected me to survive it. She turned and walked out before he could answer. That afternoon, she found herself surrounded by flashing cameras outside the building. Reporters shouted questions, their words cutting through her like glass. Maya, did you marry him for money? Are you in love with Adrian Cole? Is this marriage fake? She pushed past them, tears stinging her eyes, and took the first cab she could find. Back at the penthouse, she packed her things with trembling hands. When Adrian came home hours later, the rooms were half empty. Maya, he said, his voice low, What are you doing? Leaving, she said, not looking at him. You will not have to protect me anymore. Running away will not fix this. Neither will staying. He stepped closer, desperation creeping into his tone. You think I planned for this? You think I wanted you to be hurt? You wanted control, she said. Now you have it. Congratulations. Do not twist this, he said sharply. You are not a casualty in my life, Maya. You are the only thing that feels real in it. She stopped, the weight of his words pulling at her. Then why did you build this on a lie? She whispered. His shoulders fell. Because I did not know how to build it any other way. The silence between them was unbearable. She looked at him one last time and said softly, When I signed that contract, I thought I was protecting you. I never realized I was losing myself. She walked out, closing the door behind her. The sound echoed through the penthouse like the final strike of a gavel. The next morning, Adrian faced the board alone. His cousin Ethan sat across the table, smirking. The media is calling for your resignation, Ethan said. You can step down quietly, or they will destroy you. Adrian looked around the room, his expression calm, but cold. Let them try. He stood and pulled a flash drive from his pocket. This is the truth, he said. Every document, every recording, proving the board's corruption, including yours, Ethan. The room erupted in chaos. Within hours, the story flipped the media, now calling it the coup that failed. But victory felt hollow. That evening, as rain fell against the glass walls of his office, Adrian sat alone, staring at his reflection. He had saved the company, but lost the only person who had made him human. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a small, folded sketch, Maya's first design for the Phoenix Initiative, the wings and flame she had drawn months ago. He ran his thumb over it, his voice breaking in the empty room. You wanted truth, Maya, he whispered. Now you have it, and I have nothing. Months passed after the scandal. The headlines faded, the noise quieted, and the world moved on. But Adrian Cole did not. He went to work, managed meetings, attended press conferences. Yet every success felt hollow, without the woman who had walked out of his life. The penthouse was colder than ever, the silence echoing in every room she once filled with laughter and light. One evening, while reviewing the new designs for the Phoenix Initiative's next campaign, he saw her name on a proposal. Maya Turner, lead designer, Aurora Studio. His breath caught. She had rebuilt her life. Her studio was thriving, her work recognized by major publications. The project she proposed was for a community arts center funded in part by the Phoenix Initiative, unknowingly approved by his team. Adrian closed the file and whispered, You still build beauty out of ashes. The next morning, he drove across the city to the new community center's construction site. Rain had turned the ground into soft mud, but he barely noticed. Workers hurried around him, hanging banners that read, Opening tomorrow. And then, through the noise and motion, he saw her. Maya stood near the entrance, wearing a paint-streaked coat, her hair tied up, smiling as she gave directions to the volunteers. She looked different, lighter, freer. He hesitated, unsure whether to approach, until she turned and their eyes met. The world seemed to pause. Adrian, she said softly, surprise flickering in her voice. You should not be here. Probably not, he said, his tone calm. But I had to see what you built. It is not just me, she said quickly. It is the people, the community, the dream. That is exactly why it is beautiful, he said, stepping closer. You kept the promise even when I broke it. She looked down, unsure how to respond. The truth came out, he continued. Ethan is gone. The board dissolved his shares. The company is yours too if you want it. You earned that. I did not want your empire, Adrian, she said. I wanted honesty. Then let me give you that, he said quietly. The contract was a mistake. Not because it failed, but because I thought I could define love with rules. I was wrong. I fell in love with you long before I realized it. Her breath trembled. You cannot just say that after everything. I know, he said. That is why I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking for a chance to deserve it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, a silver ring. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the one from their contract. This is not part of a deal, he said. No signatures, no conditions. Just truth. She looked at him for a long time, the sound of rain pattering against the roof, filling the silence. You think love can fix everything? She asked softly. No, he said, shaking his head. But it can start something real. Her eyes glistened. I do not know if I can trust you again. Then, let me try every day until you do, he replied. The vulnerability in his voice broke the walls she had built. She took a slow step forward, then another, until she was close enough to see the exhaustion and hope in his eyes. You really changed, she whispered. You taught me how, he said. Maya glanced down at the ring, then back up at him. No contracts this time? None, he said. Only a promise. She smiled faintly, tears gathering in her eyes. Then I promise too. He slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling. The volunteers nearby began clapping without even knowing why, and Maya laughed through her tears. Later, at the opening of the art center, a small plaque was unveiled near the entrance. It read, "The Phoenix rises, dedicated to those who choose love over fear." As the sun broke through the clouds, Adrian turned to her and whispered, I told you, rising from ashes suits you. She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. No, she said gently, it suits us. And for the first time, the cold billionaire and the woman who had once feared love stood not as a contract, but as a choice, free, honest, and finally home.